Converted Man here, and today I wanted to look at God's perfect plan in the Garden of Eden. What is God's plan? It can only be that Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit and are able to die. Any other result cannot ever be part of a perfect plan because a perfect plan cannot and would never fail ever. Christians often say that Adam and Eve had free will, and this somehow means that God did not create sin, but it's simply not true. God created the plan that forced them into sinning. Had God wanted them not to sin, or not wanted sin to be something that would be in the world, the forbidden fruit would never have been in the garden, nor would the serpent ever be allowed into the garden to trick or to tempt them into going against what God supposedly had wanted in the first place. But if God really wanted them to always be with him, then he would have never created the option for them to do something that would ruin that plan. Again, a perfect plan cannot go wrong. So, if Adam and Eve, and I assume the serpent as well, all have free will, what are the potential ways that this perfect plan could fail? So here we are in this horribly drawn Garden of Eden that I took mere minutes to create for you. God is represented by this yellow cloud in the sky. Adam and Eve are happy and living life, and they're naked even though we can't tell because they're stick figures. And of course we have the talking, walking serpent. Then we have the tree of eternal life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which I've given apples because apples are traditional, even though the Bible never says apples. And I decided that oranges would be the eternal fruit because, I don't know, oranges, why not? And I've also decided that Adam and Eve can't be Caucasian because of science. You know, the whole science thing that says that, we all came from black people. But, let's just ignore science because every other drawing that I've ever seen of Adam and Eve has been Caucasian people. So, what am I doing trying to make sense of this story? Anyways, let's look at the different ways the story could have unfolded if we grant all these characters free will. Number one, the serpent, after eating the fruit, which the serpent tells Eve that he eats the fruit, so he might have been lying, but I'm just going to assume that he really did eat the fruit. After he eats the fruit, he realizes that it was wrong to do that, and so he doesn't tempt Eve. I mean, why would he? What was his motivation to do that? What would he have to gain from that? There's no motive here, and I'm just assuming that the serpent's a serpent, not a fallen angel at this point. So if it was just a serpent and wasn't a fallen angel, then what motivation would it have? And even if it was a fallen angel, well, again, what motivation would it have? It can't hurt God's plan, whatever God's plan is. The angel would know that God's plan can never go wrong, and nothing it can do can ever hurt God's plan. So it would have zero motive, even if it was really, really pissed off at God, it would have zero motive to do any temptation of anything. If it was smart as an angel, if it was a stupid angel, then maybe it would do this because it was really pissed off or something. But, it's just kind of getting into excuses why the fallen angel would do these things. I don't really see a actual motive that works for an intelligent fallen angel, only a stupid fallen angel. So maybe God created the angel that was going to fall as part of the plan. It would have to have been that the angel fell and that God knew that the angel was going to fall, and God allowed the angel into the Garden of Eden so that the angel could tempt Eve because, I don't know, it's just part of the plan, so go with it. At any rate, if the angel did have free will and realized what was doing after eating the knowledge of good and evil, then maybe it wouldn't have tempted Eve in the first place because it has no motivation anymore. It realizes it's wrong, and so the plan fails. Scenario 2, the serpent does tempt Eve, but she doesn't eat, and she warns Adam of the temptation, and so the plan fails. Scenario 3, the serpent tempts Eve, but after she eats, she realizes what she has done because she now has the knowledge of good and evil. And she doesn't tempt Adam because she loves him. Why would she tempt him? So she's kicked out of the garden, but Adam is not. Thus the plan fails and we don't have humanity, I guess. Scenario 4, Eve gets tempted, resists the temptation, tells Adam, who is tempted, and Adam eats, and then he's the one kicked out, and Eve is not. So again, no humanity, and the plan has failed. Scenario 5, Eve, hearing the temptation of the serpent, decides to first eat the tree of eternal life, then eats the forbidden fruit. Now she lives forever separated from God, and would still be walking around today. Although without Adam, there's no humanity to know this. So, scenario 6 is the same as 5, but now it's Adam who is tempted and eats from the eternal tree and then the other tree, and then he's kicked out, but Eve stays in the garden. So, still no humanity, but the plan still fails. Scenario 7 is the same as 5, but now both Adam and Eve eat from the eternal life tree first and then the forbidden tree. They're both kicked out. Humanity is created, and we have two immortals walking among us who would give us ample reasons to think that there was a God, but we can't have that. But the plan would still have ultimately failed because they're supposed to be able to die, and now they can't die. So there you have it. 7 potential ways, and there might be more that I missed, that the plan could have failed if we grant these characters free will. So, the only logical conclusion is that they don't have free will. They have the illusion of free will, maybe at best. They think that they're making their own choices, but they're really not, because God's plan was for them to ultimately eat and fail and die. Now, there's biblical literalists out there who think that there was no death before they ate from the tree. But there's a problem with this, other than, of course, science saying no to this ridiculous idea. Eating a fruit is killing a fruit. That's death. The fruit, as soon as you pick it off of the tree, is dead. So they can't eat anything. Ever. Oops. Well, some say that it's not really death, but it's spiritual death. So Adam and Eve, I guess, are spiritually dead after they die in the flesh, then? Because they didn't have Jesus to redeem them. Or, well, some Christians say that Jesus' redemption works backwards as well, and Adam and Eve would have been in heaven. But why would they be? They both sinned. They're the cause of all sin for all of humanity. Why wouldn't these characters be in hell if there is a hell at all? I don't know. And then some say, well, no, there's death, real death, but eating fruit is doesn't count. It's not the same. It's death, yeah, but it's not the sort of death that it's, yeah, and some other sort of BS excuse that somebody will probably post on my channel at some point in time. Okay, so excuses aside, I think that this is the only logical way to view this. If I grant that God is perfect, and if I grant that any plan that God has could not go wrong, then this has to be God's plan. If these characters had free will, then they have 7 potential ways to screw up God's plan, so they don't have free will. There's no way that they can have free will and God's plan to be perfect is also true. It's either one or the other. It can't be both. Now, if you want to say that that's a false dichotomy, you have to give me a logically coherent third option to be able to choose from that's in line with these assumptions. Now, maybe you want to challenge the assumptions. You can challenge that God is not perfect. You could challenge that one. You could challenge free will existing. If you're a Calvinist, you probably will go with that option, and this argument won't work on a Calvinist. And that's fine. I accept that it won't work on a Calvinist. I would love to have a discussion with a Calvinist on things. That would be interesting, but this argument won't work for them. They'll just say, well, they don't have free will, so what? But they might not accept the idea that it's God's plan, that Adam and Eve eating the forbidden fruit might not be something that they see as God's plan. But that doesn't make sense either, because if it's not God's plan, then it would never have happened. If there's predestiny, if everything is written, then that's what God wanted to happen. So there's no getting out of that. So come on, Christians, tell me how wrong I am. Post in the comments with your excuses, explanations of how I'm wrong and why I'm wrong, and I'll respond to them in text format, or if appropriate, a video response. And for my skeptical friends, go ahead and tell me what things could have been improved, if you have any thoughts on that, except for the picture. I know the picture sucks. Don't tell me that the picture sucks. I know somebody's going to say the picture sucks anyways. Go ahead and say the picture sucks. I don't care. Thanks for listening, and as always, unless and until we have a logically coherent argument, we must continue to be skeptical of the conclusions.